And with that, welcome back to the SakuAtsu Soulmate and Coffee Shop Haikyuu, The Rat of Fate, Part 2. In this, we might get angst. I don't quite remember at the time of recording, but we will see. I hope you'll like it. Let's go. Good morning, Ami. A small smile spread on Kiyoomi's face, hidden behind the mask. Miya. He gave him a short nod and proceeded to make his order. Atsumu laughed. I missed this. Can't believe that I survived 1 week without this all. You know, coffee addiction is a serious problem when you can't even survive without it for a week. Maybe it's time to reevaluate your life choices. Believe me, I'm doing it right now. You're so heartless on me. He whined. Come on, admit you missed me. He did. The customer in front of Komori looked a bit startled, but his cousin didn't care and just smiled apologetically. So? Sakusa rolled his eyes. Didn't you just get your answer? Atsumu gasped and kept his eyes fixated on the barista. And I want to hear it from you, Ami. You are insufferable, Miya. Aw, and yet you still missed me. Am I that charming? No. It didn't manage to wipe the smile off the blonde's face as he took the coffee from him. You know, today I might be able to spare a few minutes for... what did you call it? Chit-chat? He grinned and leaned on the counter. Well, I don't. It was a lie, but not far-fetched. Another customer just entered, and since Komori wasn't completely finished, it was his turn, at least theoretically. Atsumu looked at the guy disapprovingly before his smirk returned. Okay, well, in that case, I think I will do something different today. What kind of pastries do you have? The menu is right behind me. Don't tell me reading is too hard for you. I was just trying to make conversation. A small pout appeared on his lips. Sakusa remained unmoved, grateful for the mask covering his blush efficiently. Fine. I fancy a blueberry muffin today. Good choice. He reached for the pastry. Oh, so you like that one? The barista was tempted to deny it, but he still felt a bit fuzzy with relief of seeing the other again. It made him reckless in a way, and he decided to throw him a bone. Yeah, I like blueberry muffins. Atsumu's eyes seemed to glow a warm gold at his reply, like the setting sun. I will remember that. Don't. It was less harsh than intended, almost quiet. Ami, what else? Miya, I have work to do. No, you don't. The guy is with your colleague now, and don't you like serving me much more? You are annoying. He looks shady. Wow, never thought you'd be the judgmental type. The pout returned, and it went back and forth until Sakusa actually had work to do and Atsumu left for the day. Good morning, Ami. Morning, Miya. He turned around to make the coffee. Now that's a surprise. Are you in a particularly good mood today? If so, you have to tell me what caused it. It was true. A week went by since his return, and with every day Atsumu entered the cafe again, his mood brightened. Before his absence, his frequent visits went from being annoying to Sakusa taking them for granted. Now, he cherished them. Not that he would ever openly admit that, though. The lie fell in place smoothly. I just saw a cute cat this morning on my way to work. That's all. Really? Do you like cats? Yes. Ami likes blueberry muffins, cats, the color black, and sunsets. Got it. Sakusa paused. The last thing caught him off guard, and it was as if his brain struggled to comprehend the words. How did you know that? Huh? But you told me. Not about the sunsets. Oh, right. Atsumu nervously scratched his neck. I saw your lock screen once when it lit up with a notification, and, well, there was a sunset on the wallpaper, so I just assumed. He looked like he expected the barista to get mad at him or anything, but Sakusa simply nodded, still a bit too stunned to come up with a good response, and handed him the coffee. Atsumu paid and left. On his way out, he passed the same guy from yesterday, and his expression darkened. Sakusa barely registered it, but made a subconscious note that Atsumu really didn't seem to like this guy. Even later that day, Sakusa still mulled over Atsumu's observations. To his surprise, the fact that he knew so much about him didn't bother Kiyoomi as much as his lack of knowledge in the very same areas when it came to Atsumu. He didn't know if the blonde liked blueberry muffins or not. He ordered one once, but never again, so did he not like it? He didn't know if Atsumu preferred cats or dogs, or what his favorite color was. He didn't know if Atsumu liked sunsets, or simply had a wallpaper of one because they reminded him of his crush and the way his eyes light up. Fuck. Sakusa let himself fall onto his couch in the small apartment. His hands flew up to cover his quickly reddening face, and he felt the sudden urge to slap some sense into himself despite knowing that it was hopeless. He was hopelessly in love with Atsumu, and it got progressively worse every day. So I tried telling this guy now and what an absolute moron he was, but he's as dense as a wall. It was incredible, and Atsumu went on and on about something. Sakusa wasn't even sure anymore where it had started or where the story would go. It was all over the place. Yet he didn't interrupt him. There was no customer to tend to right now, no task to be done, and the few people still in the cafe were him, Atsumu, Komori, a girl at the table next to the window, deeply caught up in a conversation with his cousin, and an older man who came here sporadically in the morning to get breakfast and read the newsletter. Sakusa had to admit he liked listening to Atsumu's rambling. It had something soothing. At first, he had still hoped Atsumu might tell him something useful about himself to satisfy Sakusa's ever-growing curiosity about the blonde, but he soon had to admit defeat. For a still unknown reason, Atsumu left out the truly important parts, though he did mention that he had a twin brother, even though it was just in order to be able to complain about him. And even though Sakusa had long lost track of the conversation, he almost failed to notice the guy from a few days prior entering the cafe. With a sigh, and because he owed Komori for sweet-talking disgruntled customers when he took too long with Atsumu, he motioned for the blonde to stop and waved the guy over. Atsumu stepped aside, but to Sakusa's delight, didn't leave, but just waited. Good morning, sir. How can I help you today? He sounded so much friendlier. Luckily, Komori was at the other end of the room and didn't hear him. He already heard enough about the Atsumu effect. Give me the money. Excuse me, what? He was too startled to understand for a second. Too deep in the comforting bubble Atsumu's words had created, far away from reality. His mind took too long to process what was happening. The dangerous glint of desperation inhabiting the man's eyes, and the far more dangerous reflection of something metallic dancing over Sakusa's face as he revealed the gun in his hand, hidden from nosy looks by his jacket. Tremors ran down Sakusa's spine as the gravity of this situation sunk in. His hands, which were all but steady, blindly reached under the counter and... Stop. Hands on the counter. If you try that again, I'll shoot. His voice was just hushed enough to leave everyone but Sakusa in blissful ignorance, while the barista took a shuddered breath, his blood running cold. The horror must have been evident on his face because Atsumu frowned and walked up to them again. Sakusa's breath hitched and he shook his head slightly in a desperate attempt to stop him. He took it back. He wasn't glad that Atsumu stayed. He had to leave. Now. Hey, what are you doing there? The man didn't turn around, just spoke roughly under his breath. None of your business. Piss off. Komori noticed the commotion as well now. His confusion turned to utter terror in mere seconds as the first, deafening shot tore the silence. Everyone held their breath for the minute it took to comprehend the scene unfolding in front of them. A room full of innocent bystanders reduced to witnesses and hostages with a single shot. Everything changed so quickly, too quickly. Atsumu grabbed the man by the shoulder and he shot. Suddenly there was red running from the blonde's lower torso. Blood. It made quick work of dyeing his clothes the same repulsive color, vile and horrifying. Sakusa couldn't breathe. His vision hazed and his ears were ringing while the air filled with the metallic taste of blood. Everything was red. The aggressor seemed equally as shocked by the red. He desperately pointed the gun at each of the remaining witnesses in the room, cursing under his breath. The black-haired paid it no mind. He felt almost numb as he rushed around the counter, part of him expecting to be shot as well. It was a small, insignificant part, whatever bits and pieces were left of his crumbling rationality. In the end, it was insufficient at keeping him from rushing to Atsumu's side. He didn't know what was happening around him. There were voices, screams, another shot, and then again, stunned silence. He thought the door might have opened and closed. Maybe someone got out. Maybe someone would get help. It all seemed so surreal, as if it was happening on the surface while he was sinking deeper and deeper into increasingly darker waters. The blood fueled his nausea, yet he didn't care. Atsumu! Atsumu! Fuck! He didn't react. His golden eyes had fallen shut, and his skin got paler by the second, losing color as the blood was flowing freely from the wound in his chest. Fuck! Atsumu! He screamed at him, but nothing happened. In a haste, he took off his apron and pressed it to the wound to stop the bleeding. Bits and pieces of the few first aid classes he had in his life came back to him in an incoherent mix of information. It didn't help, and the longer he looked at Atsumu's lifeless face, the more his thoughts resembled a wildly humming hive of bees. Wake up! You can't die! You can't! What if he already did? What if it was just gravity at this point, pulling the blood to the ground, soaking the floor? His fingers rushed to the pale skin at the small of his neck, only to realize that it was useless with the gloves. He pulled them off without another thought, crying out in relief as he felt the way too fast rhythm thrumming against his fingertips. Kyo, you... Pressure. He couldn't hear him. The high-pitched ringing in his ears got louder and louder, the nausea suddenly overwhelming. Next to them in the air danced a string. A thin string as red as the blood still gushing from between his fingers, warm and sickening. There was a fragile red thread suddenly connecting them, wrapping itself around their hands and dancing with the dust particles as if the air wasn't filled with the vile scent of blood. As if one of the hands that connected wasn't getting progressively colder. As if one of the hearts hadn't just started the last act of its symphony. The last notes of the melody they were supposed to share. Sakusa saw with horror how thin threads separated from the string. It got thinner towards Atsumu's end, as if it was close to dissolving. No. He was breathless, nauseous, lost. These were all his worst nightmares coming true at once. Suddenly there was a pressure on the hand he still held over the wound. Komori pressed down on the bleeding alongside him, registering the state his cousin was in. He never assumed Sakusa would do this, touch someone, even if it was to save them with blood everywhere so willingly. It clicked into place as he caught a glimpse of the string vaguely visible to bystanders in the light of a morning sun. He had to save him. Atsumu had to survive, no matter what. Thank you all for watching till the end. I hope you liked it. As you see, we started with the angsty part. And I mean it, I truly didn't know at the beginning how far this part would go, so yay. I'm sorry. Yeah, again, I hope you liked it, and I hope this AU isn't too confusing or anything. Any questions can always be written in the comments, and I will of course answer them. And yeah, the next part will be up very, very soon. See you then, hopefully. And now I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day.